My wife was cheating with her boss, and I found out he was secretly funneling $250, $0 of company funds into her accounts. Now she's suing me for half the estate after we clearly agreed the house, worth $1.2 million, was mine. I never imagined her betrayal would turn into a legal nightmare over money and property. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, telling a story about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be cheating on me with her boss, and to make things worse, he was funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into her bank accounts. Honestly, the whole thing feels like a bad movie, but it's my life. I'll start from the beginning just to set the scene. Lisa and I had been together for about 8 years. We met in college, hit it off right away, and got married when we were both in our early 30s. I always believed we had a solid, stable life. She was the kind of woman who was always focused on her career, ambitious, a little bitchy sometimes, but I loved her for her fire. I was running my own business, and we bought a nice house in the suburbs, a big, beautiful place worth around $1.2 million. We never had to worry about money. Everything was smooth, or so I thought. At first, everything seemed fine. Lisa was busy, but I figured that was just her usual workaholic streak. She'd come home late sometimes, but she'd always say she was working on a project, or she'd blame her boss, Tom, for demanding extra hours. I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. We didn't have any major fights, and she was affectionate enough, even if she was a little bitchy when she was stressed. But I started noticing small things that didn't add up, little slips in her stories, her phone always being on silent, and her staying late at work more often than usual. Then came the first real red flag. It was about a month ago. I was doing some routine checking of our bank statements. I like to keep an eye on things, especially since I'd heard rumors about company funds being misused at her office. That's when I saw it. An unusual transfer of $250, $0 from her boss Tom's company account into her personal bank account. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake, or maybe a loan she took out. But then I remembered her mentioning how Tom was generous, always throwing parties, giving bonuses. It seemed innocent enough, but the transfer amount was huge, and it was definitely not typical salary or bonus money. I started digging deeper. I got access to her emails, her phone. That's when I found the emails, flirtatious messages, late-night texts, and photos. I saw her talking about getting away with it, how Tom promised her a bigger role at the company if she kept quiet about their affair. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My wife, my partner, was sleeping with her boss and apparently funneling money into her accounts to keep everything quiet. It was a betrayal on a scale I could never have imagined. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to gather my thoughts, process what I'd found. I felt numb, angry, and devastated all at once. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about the money, the lies, the way she'd lied to my face for years. I kept thinking about the house, our future, everything we built. And now I was sitting on this ticking time bomb of her secret life. The moment I decided to confront her, I knew it wouldn't be easy. I planned it carefully. I wanted to catch her off guard, get her to admit everything. But I also knew her well enough. Lisa was manipulative, always good at spinning stories. She'd lie her way out if she could. Still, I had enough evidence to make her squirm. I was ready for the chaos that was coming. I just didn't realize how deep this rabbit hole would go or how much it would change everything for me. The night I decided to confront Lisa, I felt like I was walking into a storm I couldn't control. My hands were trembling a little, but I made sure I had all the evidence laid out, screenshots of the emails, bank statements, her texts, everything. I knew she'd deny anything, but I wanted her to see I wasn't blind to her lies. I also knew that whatever she said, I had to be prepared for the worst. She was in the living room, scrolling through her phone when I walked in. Her face lit up with that fake smile she always threw on when she was hiding something. "Hey, babe," she said, trying to sound casual. "What's up?" I didn't waste time. I laid everything out on the coffee table, the bank transfers, the emails, the texts. eyes widened and she immediately started to deny everything. "You must have misunderstood," she said, her voice high-pitched and defensive. "Tom's just a friend, the money. I don't know anything about that. It's probably just a mistake or some kind of accounting error. You're overreacting." I looked at her feeling a mix of rage and disappointment. "Lisa, don't lie to me. I've seen the emails. I know about the affair. I know Tom's been funneling money into your account. How long has this been going on?" She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're crazy. You always jump to conclusions. Maybe you're the one cheating and you're just trying to cover your ass." Her words hit me like a slap, but I stayed calm. I pressed her further, demanding the truth. She finally cracked, her voice trembling but still trying to sound confident. "Okay, fine, it's true. I've been sleeping with Tom, but it's not what you think. It's just sex, nothing serious. He's just offering me opportunities and I was stupid enough to get involved. That's all." I stared at her, feeling like I'd been punched again. Betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. The fact that she was willingly screwing her boss and that money was involved made everything even worse. I couldn't believe I'd trusted her all these years. How could she lie so easily? How could she think she could get away with it? I wanted to scream, but I held back. Instead, I told her I needed time to think, that I wasn't going to make any rash decisions. But deep down, I knew this was the end of the line. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, had turned into someone I barely recognized, a liar, a cheater, a thief. And the worst part, she was trying to spin it to make me doubt myself, to make me question whether I was overreacting. That night I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling a strange mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. I kept thinking about the house, the life we built, all the plans we'd made. How could she do this? How could she betray me so completely? The thought of her with Tom, sharing those intimate moments and then funneling money, made me feel sick. I knew I had to make some decisions, but I wasn't ready yet. I just kept replaying everything in my mind, wondering what the future held and whether I'd ever be able to trust her again. The days that followed the confrontation felt like walking through fog. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that smug look she had when she was lying to me. I kept replaying her words, her excuses. "It's just sex," she said, like that made it okay. But I knew better. It wasn't just sex. It was deception, betrayal, and a financial mess I couldn't ignore. I started digging even deeper into her finances, trying to understand how much money Tom had actually funneled into her accounts. I hired a private investigator, even though I hated the idea of invading her privacy. But I needed proof, not just of her affair, but of the money trail. I needed to see where it all was going, how deep it went. Turns out, Tom was funneling more than just a couple $100,000. He was secretly moving around $250, $0 of company funds into her personal accounts. I found evidence of wire transfers, fake invoices, and some shell companies set up to hide the money. It was clear Tom was running a full-blown scheme, and Lisa was right in the middle of it. Once I had the evidence, I knew I couldn't ignore it. This wasn't just about a cheating wife anymore. This was about a serious criminal scheme. I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. How could I have been so blind? I had trusted her completely, and now I was staring at a future that looked like a legal nightmare. I knew I had to act fast. I decided to confront her again. This time with the evidence. I sat her down in the living room, laid everything out on the table. Her face twisted into a look of panic, but she tried to put on her usual bitchy attitude. "You're crazy," she snapped. "This is all a misunderstanding. You're just jealous, insecure, trying to ruin my life." I looked straight at her and said, "No, Lisa, I've got the proof right here. You're not just cheating, you're involved in a money laundering scheme with Tom. Do you understand what that means? You're risking jail time and I'm not going down with you." She scoffed again, trying to dismiss everything. "You're overreacting. This is just business. Tom's a good guy and he's been good to me. You're just jealous because I'm getting ahead. You always try to control everything." That was when I realized her lies had no end. She was a master at twisting the truth, spinning stories to make herself look innocent, even when she was caught red-handed. I felt a deep, burning anger. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I'd given her everything and she repaid me with lies, sex, and money laundering. I told her I was done. I told her she needed to pack her bags and leave, that I wasn't going to be part of her scheme anymore. But she just laughed, that bitchy laugh that made my blood boil. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You're not going to do anything. You don't have the balls." That was the moment I realized I had to take control. I couldn't let her keep lying, cheating, and stealing. I started planning my next move, how to protect myself legally, how to get her out of the house, and how to deal with the mess she'd created. All I knew was that my world was crashing down around me, and I was furious. I'd been betrayed in every way possible, and I was determined to make her pay in whatever way I could. After I kicked her out, Lisa didn't go quietly. Of course, she threw a fit, insisting she was the victim, crying crocodile tears, claiming I was ruining her life over some stupid affair. She kept insisting that the money was just a mistake, that Tom was just helping her out because she was struggling, and that I was paranoid, jealous, and insecure. That bitch was good at spinning stories, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I had the evidence, and I knew her lies wouldn't hold up. I spent the next few days lawyering up, trying to get a handle on the legal mess I was now in. The house, worth $1.2 million, was supposed to be mine since we'd agreed it was separate property, but Lisa's lawyer started claiming that she was entitled to half of everything because of the marital partnership, even though I had made it clear from the start that the house was mine. Meanwhile, she was filing a lawsuit for half the estate, trying to claim her fair share, which, to her, apparently meant everything. Meanwhile, I was also dealing with the fallout of her financial scheme. I hired forensic accountants to trace the money, and what they found was staggering. Not only was she involved in funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars, but she also used some of it to pay off credit cards, buy luxury clothes, and even fund a secret side apartment she'd been renting behind my back. I was furious. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was living a double life that included theft, deception, and betrayal. I couldn't believe how quickly everything spiraled out of control. I'd always thought I was the one in charge, the one who built everything. Now I was starring at a legal war, a house that might be taken from me, and a wife who was trying to take half my estate. It was like everything I'd worked for was slipping through my fingers because she was too selfish and manipulative to stop. I started to implement my revenge plan. I knew I couldn't just let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she did. I began gathering more evidence, not just of her affair but of her financial crimes. I contacted a private investigator to follow her, to see if she was hiding anything else, and I hired a lawyer who specialized in financial crimes and divorce cases. I wanted her to know I wasn't going down without a fight. One night she called me, trying to guilt-trip me, saying I was destroying her life, that she loved me and that everything would be okay if I just forgave her. I listened to her, feeling the rage boil inside. I told her she had no idea what she'd done, how much damage she'd caused. I told her I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal, every cent she stole. And I meant it. I also started planning how to confront Tom, her boss. I knew he was the mastermind behind the money laundering, and I didn't care about the legal consequences anymore. I wanted to make him regret crossing me. I wasn't just after revenge. I wanted justice, even if it meant going to war with the people who thought they could manipulate the system and get away with it. I was done being the naive husband who trusted his wife blindly. Now, I was a man on a mission to take back what was mine and punish those who betrayed me. The legal battle was a nightmare. Lisa's lawyer was aggressive, claiming I was trying to disinherit her unfairly, and that the house was a marital asset because we'd been living there for years. She even had the nerve to say I was trying to punish her for her affair, which made my blood boil. Meanwhile, I had my own team of lawyers digging into her finances, uncovering more lies and frauds. It was clear she'd been lying about her earnings and hiding assets, all to try and get her hands on half of everything I owned. I knew I had to hit her where it hurt, financially and emotionally. I started to leak some of the evidence to the media, to friends, to anyone who would listen. I wanted the world to see what kind of person she really was. It was a calculated move, but I knew she'd try to spin everything to her favor, so I had to act fast. I also filed for full custody of the house, arguing that her involvement in illegal activities made her an unfit owner. I wanted that house and I was willing to fight for it. Meanwhile, I couldn't ignore the emotional toll. Every day was a roller coaster: anger, sadness, betrayal, and sometimes guilt. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I was furious at her for lying so effortlessly, at Tom for using her and exploiting her, and at myself for trusting her for so long. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a manipulative, dishonest stranger. I felt like I was losing my mind, but I kept pushing forward, determined to win. I also started to reach out to friends and family, trying to rebuild my support network. Some of them told me I should just walk away, cut my losses, and start over. But I knew I couldn't just give up. Not after everything. I wanted justice. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, and I wanted to reclaim my life and my home. I even started planning how I'd rebuild after this mess, how I'd move on and find happiness again. One night, I finally confronted her again, face to face. I told her I knew about all her lies, about her involvement with Tom, and about the stolen money. I told her I was going to fight her in court, and I was going to expose everything. Her face twisted, trying to keep her composure, but I saw the fear behind her eyes. I told her she could lie, cheat, steal, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not this time. I was done playing nice. The fight was on, and I was ready to see it through to the end. In the end, everything came crashing down faster than I expected. The court hearings were intense. Lisa's lawyer tried every trick in the book of trying to paint her as a victim, claiming she was misled, that she deserved a fair share of the estate because of years of marriage. But I had the evidence: the bank transfers, the emails, the shell companies, the proof of her involvement in the money laundering scheme. It was ugly, but it was there. The judge saw through the lies. The house was awarded to me, as we initially agreed, since it was clearly my separate property and I had the documentation to prove it. Lisa's claim for half the estate was denied, and she was ordered to pay back the stolen money, which she hadn't even tried to deny. Her attempts to manipulate the court fell flat. I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion, knowing that I had fought tooth and nail for what was rightfully mine. But the biggest blow was her final attempt to spin everything, claiming I was the bad guy, that I'd been controlling and abusive all along. It was classic Lisa, twisting the truth, trying to turn everyone against me. But I didn't care anymore. I knew the truth, and that's what mattered. I had lost my trust in her, but I gained clarity. I saw her for what she was: a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. After all was said and done, I moved out of the house into a rental and started to rebuild my life from scratch. It wasn't easy. The betrayal left scars that took a long time to heal. I learned a lot about trust, about how appearances can be deceiving, and about the importance of protecting myself financially, emotionally, legally. I also learned that revenge isn't always about revenge itself, but about reclaiming your dignity and fighting for what's right. Looking back, I realize how much I was blinded by love. I wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but I also know that sometimes people hide their true selves very well. If there's one thing I want others to take away from this, it's to trust your instincts. Keep an eye on your finances. Don't assume everything is fine just because someone says it is. And never let anyone manipulate or lie to you, no matter how convincing they seem. Life goes on. I've started fresh, and I'm learning to trust again, but I'll never forget what happened. It's a harsh lesson, but one I needed to learn. And if anyone out there is going through something similar, just remember, you're stronger than you think. Stand your ground, gather your evidence, and fight for your peace. Because in the end, justice and honesty are what truly matter.